Here we're back with Rock and Roll Real Estate with Steve Bate. And we have Leslie Evans, who does the Evans Report, on the line with us here. Leslie, welcome to Rock and Roll Real Estate with Steve Bate.
Good afternoon, Steve.
We're having a great time here today. We're really talking about the Gilded Age and what I say is the most luxurious properties in the world. And I talk about location, location, location. There probably isn't a better location on the entire planet for luxury property than Palm Beach Island. Would you agree?
I would absolutely agree, and I would also say that, you're in good company. There was just an article recently with the in Barron's also stating that Palm Beach is the number one place for real estate. There were 5 homes sold last year, over $20 million here on the island. So that just gives you a slight indication.
Well, it was funny, Les. We were just talking about the John Lennon home, which was 710 and 720 South Ocean Drive. And there were 2 homes that were connected, built by Addison Meisner back in 1919. And they've gone through a number of renovations, revisions. And those 2 homes, I don't know if they're still together or not, but I think you said just one of them sold for $20 million?
Right. It was purchased by James Patterson, the author.
Oh.
So I think it's extremely well known. I'm sure your listeners know of James Patterson.
Oh, absolutely.
Good books. Good author.
Absolutely. Well, we played the song Imagine before we talked a little bit about that house and John Lennon's house. And we always say, can you imagine, being there at a beautiful home, at a castle in the sand, and being able to write a book or be able to...
What's interesting is that the Beatles, after their appearance in New York there, when they came in for the Ed Sullivan Show, came down here and stayed at a place called the Sun and Surf Condominiums. Stayed there before they went out to California for their show out there. So they have a history here. And also, as I understand it, that you've got Paul McCartney's father-in-law owns a house now on the island.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, the Evans Report, tell us a little bit about the Evans Report, because you really do document all the sales of homes and condominiums and the prices there, and you're also a law firm.
Right. By the way, the Evans Report is online. It's www.lrevanspa.com. And what we've done for the last 12 years is we've tracked every home and condominium in Palm Beach. We have the current price, the current date of sale. We have the prior sales date and the prior price, and we also have the buyer and seller's name. And we verify this through a number of sources, and it's factual. It's something that people can rely on. They may not necessarily listen to a broker or a lawyer, but these are the facts, and these are what is recorded. And it's been interesting to see the averages. And some of the facts from it, we do an analysis that goes along with the report. For instance, last year, in the first 3 quarters of 2011, there were no foreclosures of homes in Palm Beach. Now, there were some foreclosures on condos, but in the third quarter of 2011, which is the last quarter, we're just finishing up the year-end report, which will be done by the end of this week. But in the third quarter of 2011, there was not one condo, nor was there one home that was foreclosed on here. And that's amazing in this economy. The number of homes here were basically purchased, about approximately 85% were all cash. There never was any great leveraging. There never was a bubble here because the town is basically built out. If you want something new, you have to tear down what's there, but it's a shame to tear down what's here because most of it is historical. You mentioned Addison Meisner. There's a lot of homes like that which are just beautiful, and that's kept the flavor of the town.
Well, right before I got you on the phone, Les, I was talking about the historic Palm Beach mansions, the huge gilded mansions that were built in the 20s and 30s. And it seems as though most of those, except for Mar-a-Lago, have been torn down or completely redone where what was there doesn't exist as it did.
Well, there's still some homes that exist by Fascio and by Addison Meisner. There's a number of those, maybe not the huge homes, but remember, there's a couple of other homes. There's a home here that Donald Trump bought, which was bought by a Russian. You know about the condominium that was bought in New York about a month ago for $80 million?
Right. Well, that's
For his daughter.
That's the Abe Gossman home you're speaking
Right, it's
of.
the Abe Gossman home.
Yes.
Well, that home there was bought by Trump, and Trump turned around and sold it to the same person whose daughter he just bought. He just bought an $80 million condo for his daughter in New York, and that home is a massive home, and that was purchased for. It's set on a rent roll. On the sales rolls for $95 million, but it did sell for over $100 million.
And at the time, if not in all times, I believe that was the largest private home purchase in the United States.
I think it was. It's interesting. Trump was trying to outdo some of the. It was an Arab sheik apparently out in Aspen who was going to sell his home for a little bit more. So Donald just upped his price on it.
Well, we used to have a house in Aspen. I guess that was Prince Bandar who has that house in Aspen, which I believe
I think he was looking for $125 million. I think he's still sitting on it.
Yeah, I think it's about a 65,000 square foot home with a couple of side homes. But yeah, I remember. It's funny because the ski instructor that I was friends with that I used, his wife instructed them, believe it or not, and would go to the house and, they'd drive him privately to the gondola and ski on Aspen Mountain. But, it's a small world when you get into properties of that magnitude, and there aren't many places other than Aspen or Palm Beach.
No, you're right. And as a matter of fact, who lives right next door to this property is Nelson Peltz, who owns Triarch. He owns Arby's. Well, actually, he just sold Arby's. He owns Wendy's and a number of other. He owns RC Cola. But the list goes on. It's an amazing place here, and there's some amazing homes here.
Well, and the history is just amazing. I'm going to talk a little bit about Henry Flagler and what he did as far as bringing people here. The history was quite amazing. And then people forget about E.R. Bradley. There was a lot of freedom on Palm Beach when you had these gilded mansions. There was gambling.
And Bradley was the sheriff.
Bradley was the sheriff. He owned the gambling casino.
That's correct, and he was very, very religious. As a matter of fact, when he passed away, he donated the land to the Catholic Church. But it was okay to have gambling there.
Well, it's where I'm from in Evansville, Indiana. Every summer, all the Catholic churches have beer stubs, which I think there's a little gambling going on, but they make all their money for the year from selling beer.
Well, it's interesting. Bradley also had a number of horses in the Kentucky Derby.
That's correct. If you go to the E.R. Bradley's in West Palm Beach, the restaurant, you'll see a lot of those articles as you go back to the restroom area. And I know in the men's restroom, there's a big article about him winning the Derby and him standing there with the Derby horse.
But, in a way, it's not just the Gilded Age in the past. It's also current here. We've got some amazing people here like Rudy Giuliani who bought a place here. And there's a number of people. Jimmy Buffett lives on the island. Rush Limbaugh lives on the island. I can go through a whole list of people who live here. And what's nice is they live here basically in anonymity. People don't bother them. Because it's interesting. When you move to Palm Beach, you realize two things people say. One, how poor you are, and two, how young you are.
Yes, I was looking at the demographics, and about 60% of the people are over 65 years old.
Well, that's also, by the way, if you take a look on our Evans report, the third quarter showed that the average home here was a little over $4,276,000.
Well, I would love to sell one of those a week. So if there's anybody out there listening and you want to get one of those homes, now is really a good time. It's all about location, location, location. But
that's right, and they're not making any more ocean or any more Palm Beach.
No, they're not. And I have some builders that I work with that are doing Palm Beach homes, and they have to tear them down or completely redo them. Guy I work with, Steve Annunziato, I don't know if you know Steve, but he's done a number of rebuilds and remodeling, and they have to look at the materials that were originally used as well as the materials that are available currently.
Well, you have to go through the architectural review commission here, which tries to maintain the integrity of the area. So if there's a Mediterranean-style house, you can't put something that's all glass right next to it.
Absolutely not. But you can do glass wallpaper. It's funny. One of my first guests on my show was Thomas Berger from Zen Interiors, and Thomas he's out in Las Vegas. He did Trump's residence. He actually did Buckingham Palace years ago, and some of the most luxurious properties on the planet. And he's been showcased. I know he was just showcased on the Joan Rivers show. How did he get to be so rich and doing all these homes? But it was funny. He just did a remodel of a property internal in Palm Beach, and I had actually put him together with the people that did the handcrafted marble fireplaces. It's hard to find a hand-carved marble fireplace. It's one thing about putting an inlay in, but to have an entire fireplace carved out of marble with your insignias in it and everything else, not easy to find those type of craftsmen these days. But I did put him together with someone that did that. And the other interesting thing on this remodeling was the $2 million worth of glass wallpaper.
Well, it's interesting. I've got a client whose name will remain nameless right now, who has two of their bedrooms. One bedroom is completely done in mother of pearl, which is amazing. And then the other one has got embossed leather, and they've got ceilings got to be 18 to 20 feet high. It's just remarkable.
That may have been some of Thomas's work, because he does not reveal, the work that he's doing, and obviously, he keeps it very close to the vest as far as the properties he's working on and whose they are. But we had a great show talking about some things that had never been done before, and that was one of the things that had never been done was this glass wallpaper in a property like that.
Well, there's some interesting things here. And like I say, it's just beautiful. And today it's about 78 degrees, sunny and beautiful.
Well, it's people all over the world. As I said, Les, we're in 70 countries and all 50 states. And a figure that I heard, and it's primarily between Christmas and New Year's when you have thousands of private jets parked at Palm Beach International Airport because of all the people visiting the island and visiting the area. But a figure I heard was that 25% of the world's wealth has some type of involvement in Palm Beach Island.
That's probably true. I read someplace, I was trying to see the number of people on the Forbes 400 list, the number of billionaires. It's so disproportionate here. It's unbelievable. I mean, and you not only do the people are on the list, but they're involved in the community. Like Bill Koch right now has a presentation which is at the Society of the Four Arts, which is showcasing his Americana art. So people don't just live here, they're part of the community, and it really is a community.
Well, and what's very interesting, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about Mar-a-Lago and, what happened in the history of Mar-a-Lago. And Les, I don't know how much you know about the history of Mar-a-Lago and, how it was built and who built it. A lot of people may not know that. They may know Mar-a-Lago as, the property that Trump owns that he turned into a club. But the original builders of Mar-a-Lago was Marjorie Merriweather Post and her then husband, Edward F. Hutton, E.F. Hutton. Did you realize that?
Absolutely. And Dina Merrill was involved there also quite a bit.
Well, and it took nearly, over 3 years to build that, and they had over 600 workers working on the Mar-a-Lago property.
And Trump has done a beautiful job restoring it.
Oh, he sure has. And and I was fortunate enough to work very closely with Mr. Trump and Bert Lemke and Gloria Myers and the people that work at Mar-a-Lago when I was involved in doing the Trump Tower Palm Beach, which was a project, if you remember, a number of years ago that we were building next to Rybovich. Never came out of the ground.
I was involved with that when they had the auction from Bank of New York where they sold it to Trump.
No, you're thinking of the Trump Plaza.
The Trump Plaza, excuse me. I'm sorry. You're talking about the development here that he was looking at.
Yeah, this was a development that George Perez, the related group, and Donald Trump got involved as far as the branding, and I was in charge of the sales at that project, which we did a great job at sales, but the banks didn't have the money to put up to build the property. when the time came about 4 years ago.
Well, everything's timing, but it's interesting here in Palm Beach. There really isn't anything like that. There's very limited new construction, and I think that would have been a good project. A lot of times people say the views are better from West Palm because you can look at Palm Beach.
Oh, it's funny because we had a lot of events there, and we would invite the people from Palm Beach, the people that could afford or may have an interest in downsizing and buying a luxurious condo like we were building there. And I remember one night we had this party, and it was all people from Palm Beach, and the woman who lived across the water and was looking at her house, it's almost like she was upset. She goes, "Your view here is so much better than ours. I'm looking at what I want to see from here, but I'm looking back at you guys when I'm looking across the water." And I was laughing. I'm like, well, there you go. Pick which floor you'd like to live on.
I was at a party, and I don't remember the name of the building, but it was the top floor, one of the high rises on the east side of City Place in West Palm. So it wasn't as far as Flagler. It wasn't that far down. And the view, I mean, the view of the Intercoastal, the island, and the ocean. I mean, you could see out to the ocean from there.
Oh, yeah.
It was fabulous.
From the 6th floor, you can see the ocean from the West Palm properties.
Some of the people from here have downsized into the watermark for $6 million condos.
Yeah.
Which is right on the Intercoastal, on the west side of the Intercoastal. And then you've got the water view where George Hamilton lives.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and
you do have a question in the chat room.
Oh, we do have a question.
Yeah, being that you're talking about, these well-known people and the homes that they have on the island, somebody in the chat room wanted to know how much Rush Limbaugh's house is worth nowadays.
Good question. Les, what would you say?
Well, he did a consolidation of 2 or 3 parcels there, and I would say it's probably in the area of about $25-30 million. There may be more for the cachet of buying his home, which is not for sale, but probably I'd say $25-30 million.
Plus the value of his name.
Now, if anybody is interested in buying one of those parcels, I can help you find them. And I have some great contacts with people that have listings or pocket listings. And did you ever see the house that Frank McKinney built, the Aquiliana?
Oh, yes, beautiful. It's down by Manalapan?
Yes, at the bottom of Manalapan, and that was the first completely green mansion ever built. And that was sold, I believe it was for $15.9 million?
I believe it was. That's fairly recently, just a couple of months ago.
It was last year. It was last year's sale, and I actually was involved in putting together the listing for the people that had the land next to that. And they sold the land, and if you've noticed, there's 2 big mansions being built on those adjacent properties, which was the only vacant land left on the island.
Right. Manalapan's really coming up. As Palm Beach has developed, Manalapan and the other areas around here have gotten a benefit, because if you want something new, you either have to tear something down here or you have to look other places. Well,
Les, property. How much do you think those 2 lots sold for in Manalapan, those 2 vacant lots?
I would say probably in the area of around $8 to $10 million each.
It was about $13.5 million.
Each?
No, total.
Total. Well, it's 8 to 10, so I wasn't too far off.
No, you weren't too far off at all. And if you drive down there, you'll see the big homes that are being built on there. What is your favorite home on the island?
My own home.
Good answer.
That's a great answer.
I live in a 1921 home that's got Dade pine wooden floors. It has a full basement, and it's a beautiful home. But there's so many homes here that are beautiful, it's hard to describe them. Actually, Mar-a-Lago is a little bit over the top, but it's beautiful. It depends what your style is. I grew up in Ohio, and mine's a little bit more northeast.
Where'd you grow up in Ohio, Les?
In Cleveland.
All right. Well, I moved here from Columbus, Ohio.
Well, I went to Ohio State.
Oh, there you go. All right. Well, Columbus is a great town. We'll talk about this another time. Well, we didn't realize you were a Buckeye. I went to Indiana, so I'm a Hoosier, but I lived in Columbus before I came.
I went and did interviews, of course, before she passed away, with Gertrude Maxwell.
Uh-huh.
And pulling into her home, One, it was really nice. Until I got inside, she definitely. Well, one, it looked like I walked into a museum. Between the bric-a-brac and the mementos and the artwork, and how crowded it was. But, you look closely, and it was like, old house, I swear I don't think she ever updated a thing.
Well, there's a lot of houses like that. For instance, I'm just saying mine. We kept the transoms in the house, the skeleton keys, for the doors.
Sure.
A lot of homes have kept a lot of what went into them. And it's interesting now. The town just celebrated its centennial, but there's a number of homes here that are 80, 90 years old, and in Florida that's a rarity. And they haven't just demolished them; they've kept a lot of them and just refurbished them.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of other things besides just the homes, and one of those things that's natural, and it's my favorite thing to take people to because they've never seen anything like it. It's the Kapok tree that Henry Flagler planted back in 1892.
Well, this is also a city here, a town here that has designated historic trees. And there's something like 20 historic trees that you're not allowed to touch because they realize there's a beauty in trees that are over 100 years old. They're just beautiful to look at and historical.
Well, and the other thing about this Kapok tree is I don't know that there's another Kapok tree like that in all of the United States.
That's probably true. Also, the Royal Poincianas are beautiful here in the island.
Oh, absolutely. And, that was, one of Flagler's his first hotel. It was the Royal Poinciana Hotel he built in 1892.
Right. And then 3 versions of the breakers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and the Royal Poinciana burnt down in the 20s.
Right. It burned down and set the breakers on fire also.
Yeah, it sure did. And interestingly enough, as we talk about the Kapok tree, Mary Keenan Flagler, who was Henry Flagler's wife, he passed away in 1914. In the 20s, she wanted to cut down the Kapok tree because it blocked her view. And there was a group of locals that tried to stop that. And they did, thank goodness, and they preserved the tree. And there's nothing like it. They've had a lot of weddings there, but Clarence Clemens just had his funeral in front of the Kapok tree with Bruce Springsteen playing, and a lot of celebrities were there. And I don't know if you knew that. It was definitely a private funeral, and you have the little chapel that's right there in front of it. But,
that was Flagler's chapel that he built there.
Exactly.
My son is a big Bruce Springsteen fan, and Bruce, his daughter, is involved out here in Wellington with the horses, with the equestrian. Jessica,
absolutely. Well, we talked a little bit about Bruce on the show week before last. I had a chance to spend a bit of time with Bruce back when I was 17 years old. So we keep in touch with Bruce and the band, and I kept in touch with Clarence till he passed away. As a matter of fact, his last performance was down at Meisner Park Amphitheater. Just
a lot for the community. He did a lot of charity events, and he really was a good person.
Oh, Clarence was very, very special. As a matter of fact, Joe Mooney, who was close friends with Clarence and on my show 2 weeks ago, just sent me some pictures that I received yesterday of he and Bruce and Clarence at Clarence's wedding at the rim of a volcano in Hawaii back in, I think it was 1980. But I just got that picture in the mail yesterday, and it was Clarence and Bruce and Joe. So we'll have to put that up on the website here on WEI Network.
Isn't his son or grandson is going to be filling in for him now?
I don't know. I didn't know.
I think it's Clarence's nephew.
I knew it was relative.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Clarence's nephew.
And they're going to be playing down here. I'm not sure in West Palm, but I know in Tampa in March.
Yes, they just released some of the dates in Tampa and throughout. Hopefully we'll have them down here. We'll have to work on that.
Hopefully.
But, and speaking of Wellington, we talk a lot about Wellington. I live out in Wellington. Peter's out in Wellington. We were at the Wellington Jazz Fest last week. But there are almost as many billionaires in Wellington now as on the island of Palm Beach. as far as
Well,
as far as owning
but
property.
that's more for a lot of the equestrian events. I think here it's a little bit different. This is more, that's country, this is more city.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The reason the homes are here in Wellington is for the equestrian. You know, Bill Gates has a property here this winter, and we have quite a few other people. Mayor Bloomberg has a property, or Bruce has a property here. Christine Onassis has a property here, all for the purposes of being in the equestrian facility, and it's definitely country.
An advantage here in Palm Beach. You can go there in a half an hour. You can be there, and you're only 10 minutes from the airport from here. So you've got it all here, really.
Well, it's interesting. A lot of the Wellington horse farms originally were farms that were attached to the Palm Beach homes, you know, the big estates. They would, you know, I'm talking when a lot of these horse farms started years and years ago and the equestrian world began, a lot of them were connected to the mansion in Palm Beach, and that was pretty much their farm. That was the country.
Right.
Which made a lot of sense, and it still can be the case. And now you can take a helicopter back and forth if you want to. But, well, it's interesting. I don't know, Les, if you realize I was responsible in putting a TV show together with a good friend of mine, Rob Van Winkle, known as the Vanilla Ice Project.
Right.
And this season's show is all about the Gilded Age. You know, I talked to Rob just before the show started, and he's going to come on and talk about why he chose the Gilded Age and the materials that were used and the architecture that he used in redoing this home. Obviously, there's a lot of things that you can do now electronically and technologically that weren't even dreamed of with these homes. And there's a lot of materials that were used then that haven't been used that he's brought back, as far as a lot of exotic woods and coral stones and artwork that isn't typically used in the homes built today.
Well, nothing is typical about Palm Beach.
No, absolutely not. And as I was saying, that when we were doing the Trump Tower, the people that had their 20% deposit down, and we had 72 people that had their deposits down, through Mr. Trump, he offered them a membership at Mar-a-Lago without having to pay the initiation fee, as long as they had their 20% down, which was still about $500,000 for most of those properties, since we're talking, $2 million properties or more. And we gave them the opportunity to be members by just paying the annual membership and the dues. And I believe over those years, just about every new member in those couple of years came through the project. So it was fun to take the people to Mar-a-Lago. I got a chance to see Mar-a-Lago and go through kind of, there's tunnels there. There's a lot of areas in Mar-a-Lago that the public doesn't get to see.
Right, the tunnel is the one you're referring to that goes right to the beach clubs that they have in the ocean there.
Yeah, well, there's the tunnel that goes to the beach club. There's also tunnels underneath that are service tunnels under the kitchen for, sending food in different directions.
I was going to say, and don't forget the little golf course he has in the backyard there.
Yeah, there's 17 acres on that estate. And a lot of people don't realize that he bought it from the government. When Marjorie Merriweather Post died, which I believe was in about 1973 or 4, she gave the estate to the federal government, and they had to auction it off. They couldn't maintain the estate. And when Mr. Trump purchased the property, what did he pay for it? It wasn't a lot of money that he paid.
I think it was $9 or $10 million.
And then he put probably $30 million into it after that, not counting the ballroom.
Right. He really rebuilt it and restored it. Yeah, I have to give him a lot of credit for that.
Well, they do a lot of incredible benefits there. Talk about a place that really looks at altruistic endeavors, as far as the Red Cross balls, the cancer ball, the Alzheimer's ball. There's so many different balls and fundraisers there every weekend. And, a lot of people forget that's where Michael Jackson and Lisa Marie Presley spent their honeymoon back in 1994.
That's right. He, by the way, he also gets very good entertainment there several times a year just for the members.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking, first class entertainment.
Right, Celine Dion, I think, was supposed to be there this year. She was sick, though.
Yeah,
she was scheduled. So that's the kind of entertainment that they get.
So in that property, he bought it in '85 for $10 million. There's 126 rooms in that property. It's 110,000 square feet, 58 bedrooms, 33 bathrooms, and 12 fireplaces, and 3 bomb shelters for back in the day. But, interestingly enough, something that happened when he opened that as a club that a lot of people don't realize. And Les, a lot of the clubs over the years in Palm Beach have been exclusive to certain groups of people, and excluding other groups of people.
I say or restrictive, yes.
And restrictive memberships. Mar-a-Lago was the first club, and it may be the only club on Palm Beach, that if you could afford to join, you could be a member. Didn't matter, race, creed, religion, any type of restrictions, there were none.
Well, that and the Palm Beach Country Club are the two that are basically open.
Right, and the Palm Beach Country Club has become more open. It didn't used to be. It was a restrictive.
Don't think they ever had the restrictions that some of the other clubs had here.
No, you're absolutely right, and I don't want to get into the restrictions because I like the fact that there aren't restrictions and that people are allowed to be there because of, they can afford to be there and they have the right to be there. It's funny, Mr. Trump said he has a board that evaluates the people that will become members, and that board consists of one person, him. And that's it.
Hard to appeal that, isn't it?
No, and he's not rejected anyone. If they could afford to pay, they're welcome to come there. And it's been a great club. I've had some wonderful times there. The food's great, but it's just amazing walking around. I think there's like 36,000 handmade tiles, porcelain tiles that are inlaid throughout. The walkway as you go out by the pool and the garden areas. But it's an amazing place. If people haven't seen it, it is on the National Historic Register as a landmark, and you can take a look at that.
Also, the Flagler Mansion is something also to see.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was just getting ready to say, and the original classic, because the Flagler Mansion was completed in 1902. Mar-a-Lago was done in 1927. So you have a whole different type of building as far as the time frame. And what was being done and how it was being built. And, it's interesting because Flagler had brought the railroad here. He was the chairman of Standard Oil. And in bringing the railroad here, as people come here now with their private planes, the way they came here then was by private rail car. And, he bought that site back in 1893. How much do you think he paid for that site back in 1893?
Not very much. He built the trestle bridge to get over here. Before that, I believe there was only a ferry. So he probably paid several $1,000s at the most.
Paid $50,000. Where if you equated that to now, as far as calculating the dollar, you'd be almost about $1.2 million. And, he started the construction in July of 1990, and he completed it just in time for he and his wife to move in. It was February 6th, 1902. And there were 2 architects that did it. It was Carré and Hastings. And it was his winter residence, and he gave it to Mary Lily as the wedding present. And then they would travel to Palm Beach each year in one of their rail cars, and his car was number 99. And, he actually died from falling down at Mar-a-Lago on the marble stairs. And he did that in 1913, and he died later in 1914. He was 83 years old.
They just had a celebration of his railroad going down to Key West, which was 100 years ago. That's
right. As a matter of fact, when we did a show on the South Florida Fair and the 100th anniversary of the South Florida Fair, and we talked about how it was the 100th anniversary of the Flagler Railroad, who actually started the South Florida Fair by putting up money for people that grew the most exotic fruits and vegetables. So the train was completed 100 years ago, and also the seed bank that was set up. It was called the Sunday Seed Bank, where people were able to get the seeds, was also 100 years old. So it was really interesting how this all came together 100 years ago.
Well, it matches the centennial, so it's an amazing town here, really is.
Well, and I always recommend people to go to the Flagler Museum, known as Whitehall. It opened as a museum back in 1960, and the hotel was demolished in '63, and it's just a landmark. The whole
they built a new building next to it, housing his trains.
Yes,
his private cars there.
Exactly, and if you go in there, you walk in the main hall. It reminds me of walking in the Thomas Jefferson building of the Library of Congress. It's just it's amazing. And that really is it was the most classic home built in the United States at its time. And then he built the hotel onto that, and you could look right down the residence to Breakers, which was really the end of his sight line was the Breakers Hotel. Well, what would you say that the top sales of this year were, Les?
Well, you're talking 2011 is probably what you're looking at, because 2012 we're only about a month and a half in, and it takes a while to get some of the sales prices recorded. But there were five sales over $20 million, and there were a number of sales over 15 million up to 20 million. Over 10 million, there were at least 15, 16 sales over 10 million. And again, most of these are all cash. It's hard to say what was the most, but I mean, are you talking dollar-wise or quantity-wise? There's just beautiful houses here.
Well, and one thing that I always tell people is that as many homes that are sold for tens of millions of dollars, in reality, most of those properties have never ever changed hands.
No, you're correct. A lot of these are in the second and third generation.
It's funny. You'll see the house, the previous most expensive home sold before the Abe Gossman house, I believe was down at 1800 South Ocean, which was a $70 million purchase from...
that was the Lindemann home.
Exactly. And it's a beautiful property. But, you look at that property for $70 million, and you look at some other properties and you say, my gosh, some of these other estate properties, especially just south of Mar-a-Lago, those ones that go way back to the ocean, and I don't know if any of those have changed hands in the last...
About that spec house that they built there for $80 million.
Right. Well, exactly. Exactly. And, but even the spec house built for $80 million doesn't necessarily match the opulence and the foliage and some of these beautiful castles that have been built that have never been out of the family's hands.
You're absolutely correct. And even with $80 million, you can't duplicate, as you said, the artistry that was done years ago, and also the materials. You're getting some people now who are reinventing it, but for the majority of the work that's been done in the last 30, 40, 50 years, they can't duplicate what was built here originally.
Well, absolutely not. And, you see these big, beautiful mansions, and there's some homes that, are just beautiful, nice little kind of Cape Cod looking Palm Beach homes, one of which was the Kennedy estate.
That's correct. Well, the Kennedy estate, interestingly enough, never had central air.
Does it have central air now?
It does. It was sold to John Castle. But the joke was when that was sold that if the termites had stopped holding hands, it would have fallen apart.
It had. It was not really one of the most luxurious properties on Palm Beach. As a matter of fact, as I said, it was more like a Cape Cod beach house.
That's correct. And they had a number of interesting people who lived around there who were friends with the Kennedys also. And by the way, I think Ethel Kennedy is now living on the island here.
Oh, she is? Oh, good. Good. Well, you've got to keep the Kennedy name going. You always think of, Green's Pharmacy, and I know they used to go there every Sunday for brunch.
Right after St. Edward's. Yeah,
exactly. Joe would take them. But, the house that they lived in, which was originally called La Guinita, was built by Meisner, the Kennedy house. was built in 23 by Meisner for this, it was a department store tycoon. His name was Rodman Wanamaker. And Joe bought the home from him in 1933 for $120,000.
That's less than the taxes now per year.
Oh, absolutely. And it was known as the Winter White House, though, because that's where John F. Kennedy would come to stay during the winter. And as we know from that time, after the fact, during the Bay of Pigs, that they built a bunker at Peanut Island in case of nuclear attack.
Which is open now, by the way. They've restored it. It's open for visitors.
Yes, it is. It is open for visitors. I think just Thursdays through Sundays it's open to visitors.
That's a really interesting piece of history.
Have you been in that bunker?
Yes, I have.
I haven't. I've always wanted to go. It seems like every time I go it's not open, or I just miss the hours because there's a very limited hour time period when you can go there. What do you see when you go in there, Les?
Well, they've got some artifacts now. They've restored it, and they've taken some of the things you see, civil defense packages of foods and things like that, and they've brought some historical documents in there. You know, some of them are replicas, but it's just an interesting throwback.
Oh, I need to get over there. It's a lot of history. There's a ton of history here in Palm Beach Island. I can only imagine some of the things that have taken place over the years. I remember the King of England, when he left, the recent movie about, his brother that took over that had the stutter, if you remember.
Right.
He came to Palm Beach to be with his married girlfriend.
Right. And what about King Hussein had a house here for years?
That's right. A lot of people don't realize that.
It's still in the family.
Well, not just King Hussein. I know it was Sadat, I believe, had a home here, didn't he?
I've heard that. I've never been able to check that. And you've got Brian Mulroney, the former Prime Minister of Canada, who lives here?
Yep. I think that Sadat's home was in the Bradley. It was a condo in the Bradley.
Interesting.
But you said the Castles bought that home from the Kennedys. They paid $4.9 million for it, and they changed the name to Castillo Del Mar. Castillo Del Mar is the new name. And most of the houses, the big mansions, have a name. There aren't too many places you can go to where a house has a name, just like a city has a name.
Right. Yeah. By the way, do you know who lived across from the Kennedy house? It was Gloria Swanson.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Well, was that back in the 30s and 40s?
Yes, there's some interesting stories that have gone on about that. I'm not sure if they're true or not, but there are some interesting people in that area.
So Gloria would come over to Joe to get booze?
I think it was the other way around.
It was the other way around. Joe came to her house to have a drink, huh?
Among other things.
An interesting story. If those walls could speak, I can only imagine the stories that could come from the properties in Palm Beach, then and now.
What did they say?
Really interesting. There was a woman named Greg Dodge who had some very interesting stories, who had married Horace Dodge, and she would spew out the history here. It was just amazing to sit and listen to it.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have some great historical data that they may share at their deathbed, but not before.
What do they say if these walls could talk?
By the way, you talk about Gilded Age. There's something here called the Preservation Foundation. And they've got a building here in Peruvian where they've got quite a history of the town here, and it's really interesting to see.
Well, I'll have to check that out. My interest is history. One of my degrees is history, and history will repeat itself. But if you don't know history, it's hard to know today. It makes a huge difference to know how we got here, and a lot of how the world was developed involves the people that were at some point in time in Palm Beach or may still be in Palm Beach.
Right, you talk about history repeating itself. On Worth Avenue, they had Alligator Joe with his alligator farm, alligator wrestling. That's one thing I don't want repeated.
I think it was right about where the Everglades Club is now.
I think so.
Is where that was Alligator Joe, and they used to come and watch him wrestle alligators. That was the big attraction in Palm Beach in the early 1900s.
It was.
And people came from far and wide. And there's a lot of other history. I know the north end of the island was for the workers, And, when they were building the mansions, they had thousands of workers living in a place they called STYX, the sticks. They were little stick homes that the workers lived in.
The heart of it's where the Paramount Theater is here now, the Paramount building.
All right.
Beautifully restored.
La Europa's there.
That's Chez Jean-Pierre's across from it.
Oh, okay. Chez Jean-Pierre, there's some great restaurants.
I'm looking out the window of my office at Cafe Europa and at the ocean right now.
All right. Well, all the people around the world, you can come to Palm Beach. You can contact Steve Bate at Rock and Roll Real Estate, and I can find you the home. You probably need to make sure you have your cash in order, because most of these deals are cash, and lots of it.
And if you want to check, we're on Facebook, or if you want to check our website, you can see what the sales are. And like I say, we update it, and it's www.lrevanspa.com.
Les, it's great having you on here. You're a wealth of information, and I want everybody to go out and check out the Evans Report. One thing that is important, the prices haven't gone down on the island, but they did stabilize.
Absolutely. The number of sales has gone down a little bit, but the prices haven't gone down. I think people, too, are looking at it. If you have a home here, traditionally and historically, they've always gone up in value over the long term. And if you have stocks and bonds, you have money invested in there right now, you have to pay capital gains on that, ordinary income every year when you get your dividends. On a home here, if it appreciates, and they always have historically, you can not only get your dividends in capital gains type form, which is the savings, but you can enjoy it. You can't enjoy a stock. You have to worry about that day and night. A home here is something you can't duplicate the enjoyment from.
Les, you're absolutely correct. And, anybody that has a huge portfolio, the stock market's hit 13,000. My recommendation is to liquidate, take the money if you have a lot of it, buy a property in Palm Beach, and enjoy life.
I can't agree with you more.
And they can contact me to do that. And in the reality, probably in the last 15 years, right now, it's probably if you have the money, it's probably the best time that you and your estate or trust or family could purchase a property in Palm Beach. Would you agree, Les?
I would. The homes are well priced here. There is quite a variety on the market right now, but it's not. This is not an issue of a fire sale. It's here. It's a good investment, and it's waiting.
Absolutely. And Les, along with everyone else, if you go to my website, which is rockandrollrealestatefl.com, you can search the web real time. I have access to the MLS real time, so you can look at everything that's available, and that includes all the beautiful mansions on the island of Palm Beach. So, Les?
Yes.
It's been a real pleasure. Is there anything else that you would like to impart to the audience?
Come down here and enjoy the sun. It's a beautiful place. It's clean. It's safe. It's historical. And I love it.
And I couldn't agree with you more. Les, it's so great to have you on the show. I'm glad that you made yourself available. Everybody check out the Evans Report. And check out my website and see what's available on the island. And then, give me a call at 561-254-7905. And we can find you that property on the island or wherever you need it to be, because now's the time. Les, thanks again. Thanks for being on Rock and Roll Real Estate with Steve Bate. We'll keep in touch, and we'll talk to you soon.
You're welcome. Thanks again.
Have a great day and enjoy this wonderful weather. Thanks again. Well, that was Les Evans from the Evans Report, live from Palm Beach, and live right here at Rock and Roll Real Estate with Steve Bate.